My husband didn't betray me in a nightclub, or with a mysterious coworker, or in the predictable ways women fear. He betrayed me in therapy, the place we were supposed to heal. The place I bared the parts of myself I'd kept hidden for 28 years. My childhood panic attacks, my fear of abandonment, the miscarriage I still had nightmares about, the insecurity that I wasn't enough for him. Our therapist, Dr. Vega, had encouraged us to go deeper. Radical honesty, she called it, but what I didn't know was that my husband, Daniel, had been taking notes, literal notes, on his phone. During every session, I saw it by accident one Thursday evening after he fell asleep watching TV. His phone screen lit up with a new notes notification. I wasn't snooping, just grabbing the charger. But the preview text punched the air out of my lungs. Talking points, use these in arguments? I froze. My name was at the top of the note. I clicked it. The world tilted sideways. Under talking points, he'd written, mention her fear of failing as a mom. Bring up the miscarriage if she gets stubborn. Remind her she has abandonment issues, right arrow she'll fold. Use her apologies against her. Stay calm until she cries right arrow, then she'll agree. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. He was documenting my private trauma like they were negotiation tactics, weaponizing my vulnerability. I scrolled further down. There were categories, triggers, feeling dismissed, feeling compared to other women, feeling like she's losing control. Use these during disagreements to redirect blame. Strengths, good listener, strong planner, detail-oriented, right arrow, leverage these when asking for favors. You're better at this. Weaknesses, childhood anxiety, people-pleasing, guilt, right arrow, ideal for shutting down conflicts. My eyes blurred. It wasn't just notes. It was a playbook, a manual for manipulating me. I'd told him everything in those therapy sessions, trusted him with the most fragile parts of me, and he had turned it all into strategy. A soft noise escaped me, half sob, half gasp. Daniel stirred on the couch. "Babe," he muttered sleepily. I dropped the phone onto the cushion and walked to the bathroom before he could open his eyes. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the bathtub, held my face in my hands. Tears came hot and fast, but beneath the grief was something else. Something sharp, something awake. A realization he didn't just want to win arguments. He wanted to win me, my reactions, my emotions, my compliance. And I had been giving him every ingredient willingly, thinking it was therapy, thinking it was healing, thinking he was listening because he cared. But that night, the first layer of illusion cracked, and through it I glimpsed the truth. Daniel wasn't trying to fix our marriage, he was trying to control it, and he wasn't finished, not even close. Once you see manipulation clearly, you can't unsee it. It was everywhere. In the way Daniel suddenly agreed to things easily, only to circle back hours later when I was tired. In the way he always brought up my biggest fears right when I reached a decision he didn't like. In how he used phrases our therapist said, twisted to guilt trip me. "I hear that you're triggered right now. I feel unsafe when you accuse me like this. Your anxiety is clouding reality." Words designed to sound gentle, words designed to pierce. But now I heard the real meaning. "I know exactly how to break you. 3 days after I found the notes, something else happened. Something that made the ground under my feet split open. It started with a text from my sister. 'Are you okay? Daniel told us about your panic episodes. Are they getting worse?' Panic episodes? I hadn't had one in months. Then another message. 'If you ever need someone to talk to about the miscarriage again, call me. We're here for you.' My chest tightened. Again, I hadn't talked about it since therapy. Daniel had repeated my private confessions to my family. Verbatim, I called my sister immediately. 'Did Daniel say something to you?' I asked. She hesitated. 'He mentioned you've been struggling, that you've been crying in therapy sessions. He said you're overwhelmed and he doesn't know how to help.' My blood ran cold. He wasn't telling them because he cared. He was building a story. A narrative of me as unstable, emotional, delicate. A woman whose claims would be dismissed as sensitivity. A woman whose version of events would be doubted. A woman easier to control. I hung up and sat on the bedroom floor, back against the dresser, heart pounding. My husband wasn't just manipulating me, he was manipulating my reputation, my support system, my relationships, painting me as weak before I even realized I'd need to defend myself. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, not sadness, Precision. If he was building a narrative, I would build a counter-narrative. If he had a hidden playbook, I would create a bigger one. And if he wanted to use therapy as a battlefield, he wouldn't realize I had already walked off the field and climbed into the watchtower. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the next therapy session would be different. Because this time, I wouldn't be the one answering questions. I would be the one asking them. And I was done bleeding for his strategy. I showed up early for our session. Daniel arrived 5 minutes late, acting flustered, apologizing dramatically the way he always did when he wanted sympathy points. I didn't speak. Not a word. He glanced at me, confused. "Everything okay, babe?" Dr. Vega looked between us. "Maya, you seem quiet today. Anything on your mind?" I folded my hands. "Yes," I said. "I want to talk about how therapy notes are supposed to be private." Daniel froze. "What do you mean?" he asked, too fast, too defensive. Dr. Vega leaned forward. "Do you feel your privacy has been violated?" "Yes," I said, "because my husband has been taking notes on his phone during every session." He swallowed. "I take notes because I want to remember what we discuss." I turned my head slowly and looked him dead in the eye. "You titled the file Talking Points, use these in arguments." His face drained of color. Dr. Vega inhaled sharply. "Daniel, is that true?" he stammered. "It's not, it's your twisting. I was just trying to improve communication." I continued, calm as ice. "In those notes, you listed my triggers, my trauma, my fears, and how to use them when I disagree with you." Silence filled the room, the kind that isn't empty, but full of truth finally stepping into the light. Dr. Vega's voice was steady, but cold. "Daniel, that's manipulation. That's emotional abuse." He shook his head wildly. No, you don't understand. She overreacts sometimes. I just needed ways to calm her down." I pulled out my phone. I screenshotted everything. He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. I continued, "And you told my family about the miscarriage, about panic attacks, private things I told you in trust." He flinched. "I was worried about you." "No," I said. "You were building a version of me that fit your story." Dr. Vega nodded. "This is extremely concerning, Daniel. This isn't partnership. It's control." He looked at her, then at me, then at the floor. He wasn't used to losing the narrative. He wasn't used to me being silent long enough to let him hang himself with his own explanations. He certainly wasn't used to consequences, but therapy wasn't the battleground now. It was the arena, and he had just revealed himself under bright lights. As the session ended, Daniel grabbed my arm. "Please don't overreact," he whispered. For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. "I'm not overreacting," I said. "I'm planning." He didn't understand. Not yet, but he would. Daniel became careful after that. Too careful. Like a man walking around a house he knows he set on fire, but hopes no one else can smell the smoke. He cooked dinner more, offered to run errands, left sweet notes on my pillow. Classic trick, love bombing. He still didn't apologize. He never would. Men who study you like a chessboard don't believe they've done anything wrong. They believe they've been strategic. But now, I watched everything with new eyes. And that's when I noticed something strange. Every Thursday night, Daniel claimed he had late meetings. Fine, normal. But on 3 different Thursdays, I spotted the same name flashing on his phone. Jard, Family Law. I wouldn't have thought anything of it, except family law attorneys don't meet about marketing plans. So I did what any wife with a manipulative husband and a suddenly missing sense of safety would do. I followed him, not immediately. That would be obvious. I waited until the next Thursday meeting, grabbed my keys, and drove 10 minutes behind him. He didn't go to the office. He didn't go to a bar. He didn't go anywhere a normal person goes during a late work meeting. He went to a quiet building downtown, a law office, where he met with an attorney for 43 minutes. My heart sank as possibilities flashed through my mind like headlines. Divorce, custody, financial separation, preparing accusations. What story had he been building about me? And then I remembered the notes. The narrative he'd fed my family, the therapy manipulation. It clicked like a puzzle piece dropping into place. He wasn't just trying to win arguments. He was preparing for war. That night, after he fell asleep, I did something I hadn't done since before we were married. I logged into our shared insurance account. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. A list of claims, therapy reimbursements, psychiatric consultations, but not for him, for me, except I had never attended any of these. He had filed them under my name during the past 3 months, fabricating a medical record of declining mental health. My hands went numb. The secret he didn't want me to know wasn't an affair. It was worse. He was documenting me as unstable, creating a false history, preparing to paint me as unfit, to family, to a court, to anyone who would listen. And suddenly, every comment he'd made sense. You're remembering it wrong. You're overreacting. You're too emotional. You're not well right now. He wasn't describing my mental state. He was manufacturing evidence to match it. I shut the laptop and sat in the dark until dawn. Then I pulled out a notebook of my own. Not for feelings, for strategy, because if Daniel had a secret, I had one too, one he didn't know about. One that would end him, not in anger, not in chaos, but with precision sharp enough to cut the life he planned right out from under him. By the time the sun came up, I knew 2 things. 1, my husband was not just cruel, he was calculating. 2, if I confronted him without a plan, I would lose. So I did something that felt almost impossible. I got dressed, went to work, answered emails, and pretended my whole life wasn't on fire. At lunch, I walked to the same law office I'd seen him enter, not to confront his lawyer, to find my own. Different firm, 2 blocks away. High up in a building with glass walls and a receptionist who spoke in whispers. Her name was Andrea, mid-40s, no nonsense. She listened without interrupting as I laid everything out, the therapy notes, the manipulation, the jarred family law meetings, the falsified mental health claims in my name. She only stopped me once. "You're sure you didn't attend any of those appointments?" she asked. "Positive," I said. "The last psychiatrist I saw was in college, for 3 sessions. That's it." She nodded slowly. "Then he's committing insurance fraud and building a paper trail to claim you're unstable in any future legal proceeding." "Future legal proceeding like divorce?" I asked. "Divorce, asset division, possibly even preemptive positioning against you for hypothetical children," she said. "Abusers who weaponize mental health usually plan long-term." I swallowed. "How does he even file appointments I didn't attend?" I asked. "Easy," she said. "Some psychologists do telehealth. Some bill when appointments are scheduled even if they're missed. If he found a shady one or someone not paying attention, all he'd need is your basic information." My stomach twisted. "Can he win like this?" Her eyes hardened. "Not if you get ahead of it. This is why you're here now and not after he serves you with papers." She outlined my next steps like a checklist. "Request your full medical and insurance records in writing. Call the insurance fraud division and flag the false claims without accusing him by name yet. Document everything, screenshots, dates, behaviors, who he talks to, what he says. See an independent psychiatrist or psychologist of your own choosing to establish a real, clean evaluation. And one more thing," she added. "Stop telling him how you feel. For now, every vulnerability is ammunition." I left her office with a folder full of forms and a brain that wouldn't stop buzzing. At home, Daniel was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta like a man in a commercial. "Hey, you're late," he said, smiling. "Thought we could do a date night at home. I picked up that ice cream you like." Old me would have melted. New me watched the performance. "Nice," I said, dropping my bag. "Busy day? Just meetings," he said easily. "Nothing important." Jarred family law, I thought. I stirred the salad, nodded, and said nothing. That night, when he went to brush his teeth, I took out my phone and pointed the camera at his nightstand drawer. I filmed myself opening it. The drawer where he kept the little notebook I'd never paid attention to. Inside, I found what I half expected and fully dreaded, a physical version of his digital notes. Bulleted lists, session dates, phrases that make Maya back down. I filmed every page. Then I put it back exactly how I found it. I emailed the video to myself and to Andrea with the subject line, "Evidence, he's keeping his own file." It occurred to me then that Daniel thought he was the only one who knew how to build a case. He had no idea he'd married someone who'd spent years working in admin at a hospital, filing insurance authorizations, processing fraud alerts, and watching how the system worked. That was my secret. He thought I was just a sensitive wife. He forgot. I knew the exact language that made institutions move, and if he wanted a documented history, I was about to give it to him, just not the way he imagined. The next 2 weeks were a strange, quiet war. On the surface, life didn't change. We still went to therapy. We still grocery shopped. We still watched shows together on the couch. Underneath, everything was different. I recorded almost every conversation. Not with obvious cameras, just my phone in my pocket, a voice memo app running while we cooked, cleaned, argued. Andrea told me, check your state laws. As long as one party knows about the recording, you're fine. I was the party. Daniel loved using phrases like, you always remember things wrong, and you're blowing this out of proportion. Now I had proof he was rewriting history in real time. Meanwhile, I requested my insurance records. A week later, I sat at the dining table with a thick envelope and shaking hands. I opened it. There they were. Telehealth consult, depressive episode. Follow-up anxiety exacerbation. Medication management, all under my name. All signed off by a psychiatrist I'd never heard of. I called Andrea on speaker. This is good, she said. Horrible, but good. We can show a pattern of fraud designed to paint you as mentally unstable. What if he denies it? I asked. She hummed. Then we let the insurance company's fraud division do their job. They follow the money, who's scheduled, what device, what IP address. I pictured Daniel booking those fake appointments, smug, sure I'd never see the back end. Also, she said, we need a clean psych eval, someone reputable, to contrast with the false claims. So I did something I never thought I'd do again. I sat in a psychiatrist's office as a grown woman and told a stranger, my husband is trying to make me look crazy. We went through my history. Childhood anxiety? Yes. Miscarriage trauma? Yes. Current functioning? High. Any psychosis? No. Any impairment severe enough to render me unfit? No. He wrote a full report. Clear. Clinical. Unshakable. One night, Daniel walked into the bedroom and found the insurance envelope on my nightstand. What's this? He asked casually. Just checking our benefits, I said. He watched me a little too long, then smiled. Always so organized. I smiled back. The next therapy session was when I saw my opening. Dr. Vega asked, how have things felt since our last session? I said, honestly, I feel like I'm doing better than my insurance records say. Daniel's head snapped toward me. I pulled out a copy of the claims. I never attended these appointments, I said calmly. Yet they've been billed under my name. Dr. Vega frowned. That's concerning. Daniel shifted. Maybe there's a mix-up, a clerical error. I already called the fraud department, I said. His face changed. Not anger, fear, real fear. They're investigating where the claims came from, I continued. Which device scheduled them? Which IP? Who signed the digital consent? Dr. Vega watched both of us carefully. And, I added, I had a full evaluation last week. Independent. It says I'm mentally stable. No current major disorders, no psychosis, no impairment. I slid that report across the table too. Dr. Vega scanned it. Then looked at Daniel. Did you encourage her to see someone? She asked. He swallowed. I just wanted her to get help. By faking claims? I asked softly. His jaw clenched. You're going to ruin us over paperwork? I held his gaze. You were willing to ruin me over paperwork. The room went quiet. For the first time since we started therapy, it was crystal clear who was sick and who was strategic. On the way home, Daniel drove in silence. At a red light, he finally said, "You've been talking to a lawyer." It wasn't a question. "I have," I said. "You recorded me, didn't you?" "Sometimes." He looked like he wanted to scream. Instead, he laughed once bitter. "You think you're so smart." "No," I said. "I just stopped letting you use my honesty as a weapon." He tightened his grip on the wheel. "This isn't over," he muttered. He was right. It wasn't. Because he still had one move left. He just didn't know I'd already predicted it. It happened on a Wednesday morning, 9:17 a.m. A knock at the apartment door. I opened it to find a man in a polo shirt holding a thick envelope. "Are you Maya Torres?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He handed it to me. "You've been served." The words hit harder than they should have, like a physical shove. I shut the door, leaned against it, and opened the packet with numb fingers. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Filed by Daniel Torres. Represented by Jard Klein, Family Law. I read fast. He was asking for divorce, majority of marital assets, exclusive right to the apartment, and buried in careful legal language, Consideration of respondents documented mental health instability in any future custody determinations. Future custody. We didn't even have kids. He was laying groundwork for later, for hypothetical children. In the section labeled background, my chest burned as I read. Respondent has a long history of anxiety, depressive episodes, and unstable behavior, documented by multiple psychiatric consults. Petitioner has exhausted efforts to encourage treatment. Respondent's volatility has made the marriage untenable. It was all there, the fake claims, the narrative, the twist of the knife. He was using those fraudulent appointments as evidence. I called Andrea. "It's showtime," she said. We met 2 days later at a mediation session. Daniel sat across the table from me, Jard at his side. He looked tired but defiant. Jard began, smooth and confident. "My client has serious concerns about Maya's mental health. While he cares deeply for her, he must protect himself and any future children. As you can see from these records," he pushed a folder forward. Andrea didn't even look at it. "We're very familiar with those records," she said. "Your client fabricated them." Jard blinked. "Excuse me." Andrea pulled out a different folder, thicker, heavier. "These are phone logs, IP traces, and insurance reports from the fraud division," she said. "Every single so-called appointment was scheduled from your client's devices. Payments routed through his card. He impersonated her to create a false pattern of instability." Jard's confidence faltered. Andrea wasn't finished. "And these," she said, laying down more pages, "are transcripts of your client's own notes. Talking points, use these in arguments. Notes documenting how to exploit her trauma, triggers, and history to manipulate her reactions." Daniel shifted in his seat. Jard frowned. "This proves nothing. Anyone could have written." She clicked a small device. His voice filled the room. "If I can just get her on record as being unstable, I'll be fine in a divorce. Courts always side with the calm one." Silence. The recordings continued. "I booked a couple of telehealth visits under her name, just on paper. Makes it look like she's spiraling. Jard says it helps with leverage." Jard went stiff. He hadn't known that part was recorded. Andrea clicked it off. "Your client," she said quietly, "has engaged in insurance fraud, coercive control, and premeditated character assassination. If he wishes to proceed publicly, we're prepared. So are the insurance company, and should we need them, the DA's office." Daniel's face had gone chalk white. "For someone who thinks he's the calm one," Andrea added, "he sounds very unstable here." The mediator cleared her throat, eyes wide. "Mr. Torres, did you, in fact, falsify these mental health appointments?" Daniel stared at me. For a moment, something like shame flickered across his face. Then he did what manipulators always do when cornered. He lied. "I was trying to get her help," he said weakly. "She needed treatment. She wouldn't go. I was desperate." Andrea raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you wrote, 'use these in arguments'?" He had no answer. The mediator scribbled notes. Jard leaned in and whispered furiously to Daniel. For the first time, the power dynamic flipped. He wasn't the calm, reasonable husband with the unstable wife. He was the man caught building a false insanity file on his spouse. And everyone in the room knew it. Jard asked for a recess. Andrea agreed, leaning over to me as they stepped outside. "He'll want to settle now," she murmured. "He's bleeding, and his lawyer just realized he's sitting next to a liability." She was right. 15 minutes later, they came back. Jard's tone had changed completely. "My client," he began carefully, "is willing to reconsider his requests, in the interest of privacy and mutual respect." Translation: "We don't want this going to court, because it will be public record and he might be prosecuted." Andrea smiled politely. "We're listening." The offer they slid across the table was dramatically different. Equal division of assets. Maya keeps the apartment. No mention of mental health in any future documents. No claim to spousal support. "And," Andrea added, tapping the page, "we want a clause stating that neither party will disparage the other's mental health or character to employers, family members, or future legal counsels. Given the buildup of false narratives, that seems important." Jard hesitated, then nodded. They signed. But that was only the civil side. The criminal side belonged to the insurance company. 2 weeks later, Daniel's new lawyer called Andrea. "There's an active fraud investigation," he said, defeated. They traced everything back to him. They're offering a diversion program if he repays the money and pleads to a lesser charge. What does Maya want? Andrea asked me afterward. Part of me wanted him in handcuffs. Another part just wanted silence. Let him take the program, I said. Let him pay, let there be a record, that's enough. Are you sure? She asked. We could push. Yes, I said. I don't need him in prison, I just need him out of my story. Meanwhile, the fallout spread quietly. His parents, who'd been receiving his weepy calls about their unwell daughter, got a different call. From me. I met them at their house one afternoon with a stack of papers and a copy of his notes. I thought you should see the full picture, I said. They read in stunned silence. His mother's hands shook. He told us you were unstable, that you were paranoid. I was scared, I said. Turns out I was right to be. His father, usually stoic, looked angry. He used your pain like this? Yes, they apologized. It didn't fix anything, but it mattered. Because the whisper network he'd built about me collapsed, and the one he'd never expected began, our friends found out. Not because I blasted him online, but because people talk. And every time someone said, Daniel told me you were not doing well, I showed them the documents. Their faces all went through the same stages. Shock, disgust, understanding. He lost more than a wife. He lost the version of himself he'd constructed in everyone else's eyes. Good husband, trying his best. Replaced, permanently, with man who faked his wife's mental illness for leverage. Some reputations you never recover from. He chose his. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. No dramatic courtroom showdown, no last-minute pleas, just signatures, notary stamps, and a quiet walk out of a building I never wanted to go into again. I moved into a smaller apartment closer to my job. Dr. Vega and I continued sessions, just the two of us this time. No more someone taking notes to use later. We worked on rebuilding things. Trust, boundaries, my own sense of reality. One evening, sitting on my new couch surrounded by unfinished IKEA furniture and takeout containers, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I answered out of habit. Maya, Daniel's voice. I closed my eyes. What do you want? I asked. A long pause, then, I just wanted to say I'm in a program now, he said, for fraud and for control issues. They call it coercive control. I didn't think that's what I was doing. But it was, I said. I know, he whispered. I read my own notes. The stuff you showed them, it was like seeing a stranger. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I just needed you to know that I know. That I'm not proud of who I was. I let the silence stretch. Then I said the thing I'd never admitted out loud. You know what the worst part is, Daniel? It's not that you tried to make me look crazy. It's that it almost worked. I almost believed you, his breath caught. I'm sorry, he said, for what it's worth. It's worth something, I said, but not enough to change anything. We said goodbye, I hung up. And then, finally, I opened the last folder I'd kept closed. The one labeled simply, me. It held things that weren't evidence against anyone. It held my real psych eval, clean, solid. A copy of the fraud investigation letter closing my case as victim. A list I'd written in the weeks after leaving Daniel titled, Things that are true about me, no one gets to rewrite these again. Things like, I'm not too much. I cry because I care, not because I'm broken. I survived trauma before him, I will survive after him. I am not anyone's leverage. My mind is not a weapon in someone else's hands. People like Daniel think secrets are their currency. The secret he didn't know, the one that ultimately ruined his strategy, wasn't just that I understood systems, or insurance, or law. It was that I kept one part of myself completely outside his narrative. The part that knew. If it ever came down to him or me, I would choose me. Not quietly, not apologetically, not halfway, completely. If someone is using your pain as a playbook, remember this, you are allowed to shut the game down. You are allowed to walk off the board. You are allowed to take every story they told about you and replace it with one you write yourself. Because the most powerful revenge isn't making them suffer. It's making sure they never again get to decide who you are. And then living a life so free of their control that if they ever look back, they finally see what you were all along, not unstable, not overreacting.